Good news, everyone! Pernak here with another episode of Printmaking with Matt Pernak. You may have noticed in a few videos that I have used my homemade toothpick type Baren here to do rubbings. I actually find this thing very helpful and I like it more than my higher end Barens sometimes. But what I want to do today is show you how to make your own toothpick Baren. To do this, we're going to need some supplies. So the first thing we need to find is you need to find some kind of tube. Most people will use a cardboard tube like this toilet paper tube. I found this roll of old duct tape, took most of it off, so I just have just the tube here. And this one's pretty nice and big. You're also going to need toothpicks. I got these ones from the dollar store. You're going to need, depending on the size you do, you're going to need a decent amount of them. And they do have to be round toothpicks. You can't use the flat ones. Because if you use the flat ones, it just won't work. So yes, they have to be the round style toothpicks like so. Now, this one, I used bamboo ones which have these rounded ends on them. If you can find any kind of toothpicks with the rounded ends on them like this, I highly recommend you use these. Because of COVID, I've had a hard time trying to find these at stores even anymore. So I don't know why. COVID's been a weird thing. But you will also need a piece of cardboard of some kind right here. I just have some chipboard that I'm using. And then some silicone adhesive, and this is the kind I'm using here. You can get it in a little tube like this, or you can get it for like this kind as a caulking, so you can put it in your caulking gun. So if you have this kind, you're going to need a caulking gun too. And then I highly recommend a few choices of sandpaper. You know, going from small, very rough here. Oh, that's 500. That's not rough. The rough one, like this 80 grit, up to your about 400 or 500 grit, and a couple in betweens too. So I'm going to have my 500 grit. I'm actually going to use probably the 120, and I'm going to have a 220. So I'm going to use those three in different steps of this process. And that's pretty much it for supplies. Now let's go over how we're going to make this thing, right? Alright, to get started, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our cardboard right here. And then once we've got our cardboard, you can grab a pencil and our cardboard tube. Now you could use a mailing tube, you could use anything. Like I said, this is from a old roll of duct tape that I got at the dollar store. Just took the duct tape off. Anything will really work. And then you're going to put your tube right there, and then draw a circle around it to create a bottom for this. Unless you have some other way of creating the same size circle as this, you can do that also. And then we're going to take our scissors and cut this out, like so. You don't have to do anything super special about it. It doesn't have to be super perfect. It won't really matter. Throw out the scraps. I'm going to take that like so. I'll want it back up on here how it was supposed to be, because this thing isn't perfectly round for me. And I'm just going to take a little bit of masking tape here for now. Put it across the bottom just to hold this in place. And as you can see, so now we've got that, and we're going to flip it over like so. And we're going to take our glue, or a silicone adhesive, right here. Hope this will be fine. There we go. Put in our caulking gun. And then we're just going to squeeze. Really? Oh, you gotta be kidding me. That's why. I forgot they put a hole in the end of this that's sealed with foil. And now I've done that, we're just going to fill the bottom of this thing in with silicone. And we're going to use a good amount here. I'd say fill it up at least quarter to halfway. I'm probably going to do about a third of the way here, because you have to have a lot of this stuff. But you use too much and it's just going to make a mess everywhere. And we're going to take our toothpicks like so. Oop, spilling them already. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it kind of at an angle like so. I'm just going to set the toothpicks in like this, as you can see. I'm just going to keep shoving toothpicks in until this entire thing is filled up. Now we'll probably use multiple boxes of toothpicks. I mean, this one box is 500 toothpicks, and I know it's not going to be enough. Man, sometimes that plastic does not want to come off. And your goal is really to have this entire thing filled with toothpicks and have them all standing straight up. And as you can see, I've kind of started to screw it up by putting them in wrong. But eventually I will get it right. You just have to work the toothpicks in there. As you can see, it's already starting to come out of the top, so I may have used a little too much. It's not too much of a big deal if it comes out a little bit. So I'm going to fast forward this and get this done. Alright, you saw me doing a bunch of things on this, and as you notice, the glue did come out of the bottom here. And that's going to be expected. So whatever you're doing this on, make sure it's on something that you don't either care about or something you can easily clean this glue off of. And then you also want to make sure you're trying to clean the glue away from the edges here too, because it's going to spill out. Now if I use less glue, this would be less of a problem. As you can see, I used too much. Oh well, it's not a big deal. Better safe than sorry, right? And then I'm going to take the rest of my little cardboard here. It's more of a chipboard. I'm just going to push down on this because you want this thing to be as flat as possible. And as I do this, as you can see, the glue is coming out of the bottom still. And it just continually comes. And I've used about 2.5 boxes for something this big. And this is probably what, about a 3-inch Baren is what I would say this is. So it's just coming out of the bottom, and that's fine. I'm just going to kind of wipe it off. And then I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to set it off to the side on something else on this cardboard that I have here. Just going to let it sit there and let it dry. And I'm going to let it dry probably overnight here, guys, because that's all you need to do is you just got to let it dry overnight. And I'm going to clean up this mess, and I'll see you back when it's dry, because I can't proceed any further until the next step. Alright, so we've had some time to sit here and let this thing dry. And if you notice, I had a bunch of silicone that came out on the bottom and everything like that, and even on the top right up along here, as you could see. And that's really not going to affect anything. It's not going to harm anything, because it's not, doesn't really matter. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean this up just a little bit. So I've got my knife, and I'm just going to kind of scrape it along here. Just cut off the excess glue. It's not necessary, but it doesn't hurt. I'm just going to clean up everything that's on there and get it gone. Be very careful, because the X-Acto knives are very sharp, and I don't want to cut my thumb again, because I've done that before. And I'm just going to kind of clean up along the whole edge of the bottom, just so it's cleaner and looks a little bit better. Now, because there's so much silicone on this, and it's been glued so heavily, the bottom right here is going to stay with everything else, because everything is just basically glued together. So I'm just trying to get off all this extra silicone. So I don't even need the tape on the bottom. But if you really want to, you could probably just tape up the bottom with some more duct tape or something. And that is a toothpick Baren. It's pretty basic, pretty simple, and they actually work really well. And you want to make sure you keep them flat, like this. So this top part needs to be flat. And we did that just by setting it down on the ground like this, or on the table, and then pushing down with this. Kept it flat. Now, as it stands, you can use this Baren as it is right now. It is a completely usable Baren. But I don't like how pointed the tips are, which is one of the main problems I've always had with the toothpick Barens, which is why I like using the ones with the round ends so much more. Like, this one right here, because you could see all those little bumps and rounded ends, and they work a lot better than this. But we can take care of that. What we're going to do is we're going to grab some sandpaper here, and this is 120 grit right here, whichever way it goes. I'm just going to take this and tape it down a little bit, and very gently didn't want to put and twisting this around like this. And just drawing this over the sandpaper. Or you can even try and go like this, which is a little loud, but it's making the points, as you can see, less pointed. And I've worked it down, as you can see here, and shaved it down, which is a good thing, because now the points are a little bit flatter and a little bit wider, which is actually a little bit better for the printing too. Now, you could grind this down so it's much flatter, and so that way you still have less bumps. It's going to take a lot more effort and a lot more time here than this sandpaper will do. But I'm also going to grab a little bit finer sandpaper here. So I'm going to use this 500 grit right here. So I want a little bit finer sandpaper. And I'm just going to do the same thing. Just move it in multiple directions as I do this, twisting it around. And it's just going to make this part smoother. Now, for this one, I'm not going to I'm not going to sand it down more, because it's going to take a lot more effort, and I really don't need to do that. But as you can see, this thing's done. It's all you need to do. And if you... Oh boy. Sorry about that. Something fell over and I had to catch it. It was not good. But as you can see, this is done. And you have a toothpick Baren. They're pretty inexpensive to make. I would say this thing probably cost around $10 to make. And that's about $3 for all the toothpicks, $1 for this roll, another $1 for some of the cardboard. Cardboard can be free depending on where you get it from. I use tag board. And the silicone, and that's probably the most expensive part. That silicone in that tube is about $8 or $9, I believe. At least that's what I paid for it at the Ace Hardware down the store, or down the street. But overall, you got yourself a toothpick Baren. They work really well. I love these things, and they're inexpensive to make, and they're actually kind of flexible too, which is another thing that's nice about them. But yeah, toothpick Baren, guys. So there you have it, a toothpick Baren. Pretty basic, pretty simple, pretty easy to use, pretty easy to make actually. And like I said, I like these things. This one that I use here with the rounded tips, which is the kind I like more, but they're not easily found right now. And yeah, they do, you can see right here, occasionally break off one every once in a while, but that's okay because you can make another one for less than $10. You know, like I said, the most expensive thing is the silicone. I mean, I probably spent $8 or $9 on this tube, but you want to know what? That can make me a couple more too. And I can even make smaller ones. That's the neat thing about them, is you can control the size of how big you want one. Now I've got a bigger one as opposed to my small one. And I was even thinking about maybe making one size of a toilet paper tube. Might be an interesting little small one to use. Well, everyone, I want to thank you for watching the video. Hopefully you learned something, and maybe you can make your own toothpick Baren now and try one of these out. Like I said, they do work really well. Remember, give me a thumbs up down below. That way that kind of helps me out as a YouTuber. Not that I make any money off of this. Or if you have questions, answer them or post them down below. I will answer them. Remember, you can always follow me on my Instagram, my Tumblr, or my Twitter. All those links are down below. Till next time, everyone. See ya. Bye.